I was talking to a campus minister a while back who had been doing it for a long time. He had been in campus ministry for a long time. And he said something that just stuck with me. He said 20, 30 years ago when we were dealing with students, they would come in and they would talk to us about lust, and they would talk to us about pornography, and we would have to deal with them on that level. He said today we've moved beyond that to this hookup culture that sees having sex with somebody as little more than a handshake. And he talked about young women coming in and referring to their body count. In case you're unfamiliar with that terminology, the body count is how many people you've had sex with. So the things that we're dealing with now, this war and this rebellion against the sovereignty of God as it relates to marriage and family and human sexuality, it did not start with the alphabet mafia. It goes back way further than that. It goes back to where we looked at contraceptives as an excuse to have sex without consequences. And then we looked at abortion as the backstop for when the contraceptives didn't work so that we could have sex without consequences. And then sex without consequences led to sex without commitment. And sex without consequences and sex without commitment led to sex without any meaning whatsoever. And we became numb to it. And it is all rooted in this rebellion against the sovereignty of God over human sexuality, marriage, and the family. Then we get to the next part, verse 26. For this reason, it's a continuation. God gave them up to dishonorable passions. For their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. This phrase is really important because there are many, even within the evangelical community, who are trying to argue, again, this new gay Christian movement and so on and so forth. Many try to argue that what Paul is dealing with here is pederasty. He's not dealing with sexual orientation. Paul didn't understand sexual orientation, and the Holy Spirit wasn't smart enough to have him to address something that would be good enough for sexual orientation when it came, because apparently the Holy Spirit didn't foresee that you get the problem, right? But the idea that this was dealing with pederasty and this common practice of men having sex with younger boys does not account for the fact that he starts with women having sex with other women. This is not just pederasty. These are dishonorable and degrading passions, are unnatural sexual desires. Their women exchanged the natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. And likewise, the men gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another. Some argue that the desire is not a problem. No. Being consumed with passion for one another is a problem. The passion and the desire that is unnatural is unacceptable. And trying to argue that it is acceptable is part of our rebellion against the sovereignty of God, who says, I did not make you that way. Men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. Again, we start with rebelling against the sovereignty of God and saying, there is no God. We decide what humanity is. We decide what human sexuality is. We decide what marriage is. We decide what relationships are appropriate as it relates to sexual activity. We make that determination because there is no God. And eventually, you move beyond even the natural, and we are continuing to move in that direction.